This is the lecture video for Chapter 8, Section 1, in which Jefferson becomes president. He will be elected to the office of president in 1800, but not without some controversy. First off, we have the two major political parties at the time, Federalists and Democratic Republicans. The candidates running for Federalists are John Adams, who is the incumbent, or the man who had the office, and he was up for re-election of a second term. There is no limits, but this would have been, I believe, his second term to be elected president. And also Charles Pinckney, that we learned about, Pinckney's treaty of the previous chapter. They did not like Jefferson and thought that he favored the French too much, and that if he was elected president, this is right after the French Revolution, in which chaos and destruction, revolution kind of hit France. They thought that, they claimed if Jefferson was elected president, then he would bring all of that to America as well. Also, Jefferson had a great interest in science and philosophy, and they thought that that was anti-religious. And a quick story about that, 2 years ago when I was in Washington, D.C., Mr. Lurkey, Mr. Felton, and I toured the History Museum, and it was either, I don't know if it was a permanent or a special exhibit, but they had Thomas Jefferson's Bible on display. And Thomas Jefferson had actually ripped out parts of the Bible that he didn't like and didn't really think that he fit with the others. Including some miracles that is going to defy science and other things like that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. But people at that time thought that he was also anti-religious, and obviously that's probably pretty radical for the time of the 1800s. The people against him are going to be Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Thomas Jefferson, the writer of the Declaration of Independence from Virginia. They argued that Adams wanted to be crowned king, which is going to be a great insult, with the American Revolution only being 20 years old or so. And that was due to him passing the Alien and Sedition Acts that we talked about, granting the government a great deal of power. Adams is also going to be increasing the power of the army, which Jefferson is going to argue is not a good idea. Well, the results are going to be a tie between Jefferson and Burr, who are both going to receive 73 electoral votes that you can see right here, to Adams's 65 and Pinckney's 64. And so those are the states at the time of 1800. And according to the Constitution, second place was would receive the office of vice president. Well, we have a tie. In the case of a tie, then it is going to go to the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives is going to vote. It took a very long time, 36 votes in order for them to elect Thomas Jefferson to be our third president of the United States. They will shortly after pass the 12th Amendment that will then create a separate ballot for president and for vice president, which is what we kind of do today. However, they kind of run together. But we're not going to get into the specific details on that. So Thomas Jefferson is elected president. He's in Washington, D.C. That is being built at the time. The Capitol building is unfinished, and the Executive Mansion, that is going to be the White House of today. And he's going to give his inaugural speech, and of course he's going to stress his opinion for limited government. That is going to be his beliefs all along, ever since being a member of George Washington's cabinet. Once Jefferson is in office, he is going to choose James Madison as his Secretary of State. James Madison is a big political figure. He was really big at the Constitutional Convention and getting the Constitution written. He's a man known as the father of the Constitution because he took such detailed notes of what happened during the convention. He is also going to choose Gallatin as his Secretary of Treasury. Ideas that he will accomplish or policies he will establish while in office is lowering the spending and reducing the size of the military. He is also going to keep the size of the government small, and he will try to eliminate any domestic taxes that are going to burden the people. The one Federalist policy that he will recognize is the National Bank. He did see the need for that at this point, and so he will keep that around. And so those are basically the same beliefs and ideas of the Republican Party today. So Thomas Jefferson existed then, he would, or today, he'd definitely be a member of the Republican Party. Next, we're talking about Marbury versus Madison. This is something that you are very familiar with because we talked about this in our constitutional unit. It began with the Judiciary Act of 1801. That is going to be, notice how Thomas Jefferson was elected in 1800. He's not inaugurated until March. So the Federalists will pass the Judiciary Act of 1801, creating 16 new judgeships or positions, and they are going to fill them all with Federalist members. Well, William Marbury is going to be one of them, and he is going to, let me make that this. He is going to want his position. However, his papers never made it to him. He can't start his job until he officially receives those papers. Well, Thomas Jefferson, who is now going to be president, refuses to deliver those documents. He didn't like the fact, or he thought it was wrong for all of those Federalists to be put into the judicial branch, thought that they are basically going to take over. And so Marbury is going to sue him, particularly James Madison, who will be his Secretary of State, responsible for dealing with all of those things. John Marshall is a big name as far as the early Supreme Court is concerned. As Chief Justice, he will be making a lot of decisions and supporting a lot of the acts and things that will be going on as we create our country. And one of his the big things that he will do is establish Marbury versus Madison. Jefferson didn't like it because he was a Federalist. However, John Marshall will decide that the Supreme Court doesn't have the jurisdiction to hear that case, because you'll remember that they had certain situations such as ambassadors, citizens of different states, situations out at sea. They didn't have the jurisdiction to hold this, but in doing that and by making that decision, he will establish the fact that the Supreme Court does have the power to check the power of the other branches, and that is what we know as judicial review, the power to declare an act of Congress unconstitutional, their separate or their checks and balances power. And with our idea on political cartoons, here is a cartoon here illustrating Marbury versus Madison. Here you see your symbol representing the Supreme Court and their ability to stomp on, cancel, get rid of any legislative or executive decisions.